A $7 coffee doesn't sound dangerous. In fact, most people spend more than that without thinking twice. But what if I told you that one simple daily habit could quietly cost you more than $500,000? Sounds impossible, right? That's exactly what Jake thought, until a coworker showed him a number that completely changed the way he looked at money forever.
Chapter 1. The Cup That Changed Nothing. Imagine walking into a coffee shop on a Monday morning. You're tired. You have a busy day ahead. The smell of freshly brewed coffee fills the air. You glance at the menu. A large specialty coffee costs $7. You pull out your phone, tap your card, and buy it without thinking. $7. That's it. Not 70, not 700, just $7. You take a sip. It tastes great. You continue with your day. Nothing dramatic happens. Your bank account doesn't suddenly collapse. Your financial future doesn't explode. You don't become poor. In fact, you probably won't even remember buying that coffee a week later. And that's exactly why this story matters. Because financial disasters rarely arrive all at once. They arrive quietly, one small decision at a time. One harmless purchase, one little habit, one daily expense that feels insignificant. And before long, decades have passed. Most people hear financial advice and immediately think they need to make huge changes. Earn more money, start a business, invest in real estate, become a millionaire overnight. But wealth isn't usually built through giant decisions. It's built through thousands of tiny ones. The problem is that tiny decisions are invisible. You can see a luxury car, you can see a mansion, you can see a billionaire's yacht, but you can't see the future value of today's habits. And because you can't see it, you ignore it. Now let's be clear, this isn't a story about coffee. Coffee isn't evil. Buying coffee isn't stupid. Enjoying life isn't a financial crime. The point isn't the coffee.
The point is what that money could have become. Because every dollar you spend has two prices. The first price is obvious, the amount printed on the receipt, $7. But the second price is hidden. It's the future value of that money if it had been invested instead. And that hidden price is where things get interesting. Very interesting. Because the $7 coffee you're drinking today may not actually cost $7. It may cost hundreds, thousands, or even hundreds of thousands. Not because coffee is expensive, but because time is powerful. And most people dramatically underestimate what time can do to money. The greatest financial force in the world isn't income. It isn't intelligence. It isn't luck. It's time combined with compound interest. A force so powerful that even some of the smartest people in history called it a miracle. Yet most people spend their entire lives fighting against it without even realizing it. And it all begins with something as small as a $7 coffee.
Chapter 2. Meet Jake. Jake was 25 years old. He had just started his career. Nothing special, nothing extraordinary. He earned a decent salary, paid his bills, lived in a small apartment. And like millions of people, he loved coffee. Every morning he stopped at the same coffee shop before work. $7. Every day. 5 days a week. Sometimes weekends too. It became part of his identity, his routine, his comfort, his reward. Whenever anyone mentioned the cost, Jake laughed. It's only $7. And honestly, he wasn't wrong. $7 wasn't ruining his finances. $7 wasn't keeping him awake at night. $7 wasn't preventing him from paying rent. So he continued, week after week, month after month, year after year. Then, one afternoon, a coworker named Sarah sat beside him during lunch. Sarah had a strange habit. She loved running numbers. Investments fascinated her. Markets fascinated her. Retirement fascinated her. Jake thought she was a little obsessed.
While drinking coffee together, Sarah asked a simple question. How much do you spend on coffee every day? Jake shrugged. Well, about $7. Sarah pulled out her phone. Every workday? Pretty much. She typed a few numbers, then turned the screen around. Jake laughed. No way. Sarah smiled. Way. What Jake saw shocked him. Not because the daily amount was large, but because the future amount was enormous. Sarah wasn't showing him how much he spent. She was showing him what he could have invested. And for the first time in his life, Jake saw money differently. Most people look backward. They see what something costs today. Investors look forward. They see what that money could become tomorrow. That difference changes everything. Because the wealthiest people in the world don't simply ask, "Can I afford this?" They ask,
What am I giving up to buy this? That question introduces one of the most important concepts in finance: opportunity cost, the invisible cost behind every financial decision. And once you understand it, you'll never look at spending the same way again.
Chapter 3. The Invisible Price Tag. Let's talk about opportunity cost. Imagine you have $7. You can spend it or invest it. You can't do both. The moment you choose one option, you automatically give up the other. That sacrifice is called opportunity cost, and it's everywhere. Buying a car means giving up the opportunity to invest that money. Buying expensive clothes means giving up another opportunity. Buying gadgets, subscriptions, impulse purchases, all of them carry invisible price tags. Most people never calculate them because they're hidden, and hidden costs are easy to ignore. Let's return to Jake. $7 per day, 5 days per week, that's $35 weekly, about $150 monthly, roughly $1,800 annually. Still doesn't sound life-changing. Many people spend far more than that. But now let's add time. Suppose Jake invested that money instead. Not in some magical investment, not in a risky scheme, just a diversified investment earning around 10% annually over the long term. Historically, that's not an unreasonable assumption for stock market investing over many decades. Now, things start getting interesting. After 1 year, not much. After 5 years, still not life-changing. After 10 years, definitely noticeable. After 20 years, surprising. After 30 years, shocking. After 40 years, absolutely staggering. Because compound interest doesn't grow in a straight line. It grows exponentially. That's the secret. The first years feel slow, painfully slow, almost boring. Many people quit during this phase because they don't see immediate results. But compound growth isn't designed to impress you early. It's designed to reward patience later. Think of planting a tree. The first few years look unimpressive. Tiny trunk, tiny branches, tiny growth. Then suddenly, it explodes. What looked insignificant becomes massive. Money behaves the same way. And this is why people often underestimate the true cost of habits. Not because the habits are expensive today, but because they're expensive over time. The coffee isn't stealing $7. It's stealing decades of growth. And that's where the real damage occurs. Quietly, patiently, invisible to almost everyone. Until it's too late.
Chapter 4. The Eighth Wonder of the World. Albert Einstein is often credited with calling compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. Whether he actually said it or not, the principle remains true. Compound interest is extraordinary. Here's why. Most people think money grows through contributions, but eventually money grows through growth itself. At first, you invest money. Later, your money begins investing money. Then your money's money begins investing money. And suddenly, growth accelerates. Imagine a snowball rolling downhill. At the top, it's tiny, almost harmless. But every rotation adds more snow, more size, more momentum. By the bottom, it's enormous. Compound interest works exactly like that. The longer the hill, the larger the snowball. Time is the hill, and most people waste it. They delay investing. They wait until next year.
They wait until after a promotion. They wait until after buying a house. They wait until after paying off something else. They wait until life becomes perfect. But life never becomes perfect. And while they're waiting, time disappears. The tragedy isn't that they fail to invest enough. The tragedy is that they start too late. Because compound interest cares more about time than amount. A person investing small amounts early can often outperform someone investing larger amounts later. That's how powerful time becomes. Every year matters. Every decade matters. Every delay matters. This is why financial experts constantly repeat the same advice. Start now. Not because now is convenient, but because now eventually becomes 30 years, and 30 years changes everything. The earlier you begin, the less money you actually need to invest. The later you begin, the harder you must work. Time either becomes your greatest ally or your greatest enemy, and the choice is usually made long before anyone realizes it.
Chapter 5. The $500,000 coffee. Now let's reveal the number. The number that shocked Jake. The number that inspired this story. Let's assume $7 per day, 5 days per week, invested consistently. Average annual return around 10%. 40 years. The result? Roughly $500,000. Sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on returns. But the point remains. A simple daily habit can represent hundreds of thousands of dollars over a lifetime. Think about that. The coffee itself isn't worth $500,000. The lost growth is. That's the distinction. The coffee isn't the enemy. The opportunity cost is. And this concept extends far beyond coffee. It's restaurants, subscriptions, impulse purchases, luxury upgrades, convenience spending, tiny leaks that seem harmless individually, but become enormous collectively. Again, this doesn't mean you should eliminate every pleasure. That's not the lesson. Money exists to improve life, not imprison it. The lesson is awareness, intentionality, understanding trade-offs. Because every purchase asks a question. Would I rather have this now or something much larger later? Neither answer is automatically right, but consciously choosing is better than accidentally choosing. Most people don't decide, they drift. And financial drifting can be incredibly expensive, especially over decades. Because compound interest doesn't care whether you're paying attention. It keeps working, either for you or against you, every single day.
Chapter 6. Jake's Decision. After seeing the numbers, Jake didn't quit coffee forever. That would have been unrealistic, and honestly, unnecessary. Instead, he changed his approach. Some days he bought coffee. Some days he made it at home. The difference went into investments. Nothing dramatic, nothing extreme, no financial guru lifestyle, no suffering, no deprivation, just intentional choices. Over time, something surprising happened. The investments began growing. Slowly at first, then faster and faster. Years passed. Jake received raises. His income increased. But his most important habit wasn't earning more. It was investing consistently. The lesson from the coffee extended into every area of life. He began asking better questions. Do I really need this? What is the opportunity cost? Will this matter next month? Next year? Next decade?
Those questions transformed his finances, not overnight, but permanently. Because wealth isn't usually built through heroic acts. It's built through repeated behaviors, repeated choices, repeated discipline. The habits that seem boring today often create extraordinary results tomorrow. Meanwhile, many of Jake's friends focused entirely on income. Bigger salaries, bigger spending, bigger lifestyles. Every raise disappeared. Every bonus vanished. Every financial win immediately became a consumption opportunity. And despite earning more, they weren't necessarily building wealth, because wealth and spending often move in opposite directions. Income creates possibilities. Behavior determines outcomes. Jake eventually understood something profound. Financial freedom isn't about making every dollar count. It's about making enough dollars count, consistently for long enough. That's where the magic happens. Not in one decision, not in one investment, not in 1 year, but in decades of intelligent repetition.
Chapter 7. The Real Lesson. Let's end where we began, with a $7 coffee. Will one coffee make you poor? No, absolutely not. One coffee changes nothing. One restaurant meal changes nothing. One purchase changes nothing. But habits change everything. Because your future isn't built from isolated decisions. It's built from repeated decisions, repeated thousands of times. The real question isn't, should I buy coffee? The real question is, what habits am I creating? Because habits become lifestyles. Lifestyles become financial outcomes. And financial outcomes eventually become your reality. The millionaire and the struggler often begin with remarkably similar choices. The difference is consistency. The difference is time. The difference is understanding opportunity cost. Every dollar has a job. Spend it today, and its job is over. Invest it, and that dollar may work for decades. It may produce more dollars, which produce more dollars, which produce even more dollars. That's the miracle of compound interest.
The formula looks simple, but it explains why small habits create massive outcomes. And that's the lesson most people miss. The $7 coffee was never about coffee. It was about time. It was about choices. It was about understanding that every financial decision echoes into the future. Some echoes fade quickly, others continue for decades. The people who build wealth learn to hear those echoes. They learn to see the future value hidden inside today's actions. And once you learn that skill, everything changes. The coffee shop, the grocery store, the car dealership, the online checkout page, every purchase begins asking a new question. Not, can I afford this? But, what is this really costing me? Because sometimes, the most expensive things in life don't look expensive at all. Sometimes they cost only $7. And sometimes that $7 quietly grows into $500,000.